Okay, so you should have just finished a Desmos activity where you practiced writing equations of parabolas in different forms. We're going to kind of do a check your understanding with this, looking at different forms of parabolas to see, what we gained from that activity. So first question says, let f of x equal x plus 6 squared minus 4. Note that that's in vertex form, so we can pretty quickly figure out, just by using transformations from the parent function, exactly where our graph would go on the coordinate plane. Okay, so this blue graph right here, that's just x squared. Okay. If I have x plus 6, that would give me a horizontal shift. Remember, it goes opposite direction, so it's going to go to the left, 6. And this minus 4 is going to give me a vertical shift down 4. And typically when I shift parabolas, I like to just pick that nice vertex point and move it. Which means we end up with a parabola with the vertex being at -6, -4. And that axis of symmetry, which is just the axis that goes right down the vertex, would be at the line x equals -6. And that should always be the case where your vertex and your axis of symmetry have, or your axis of symmetry has the same x value as your vertex. That should always be the case. Okay, if we are trying to write f of x in factored form, then we want to start thinking about, what would it look like as just two binomials multiplying with each other. And the easiest way, I think, to go about that is to take what we do have. So f of x equals x plus 6 squared minus 4, and multiply that out. Okay, so remember, x plus 6 squared is the same thing as writing x plus 6 times x plus 6. Oops, we still have that minus 4 at the end. And if I have x plus 6 times x plus 6, that's where we go back and we distribute, or some of your other teachers might have called it foiling. Okay, so x times x gives us x squared. X times 6 is 6x. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 6 is 36. And that minus 4 still at the end. So we can simplify a little bit. 6x and 6x is 12x. 36 minus 4 is a positive 32. And once we're here, that's our standard form. We can factor it. And there's lots of different methods to factoring. I'm going to go with kind of the guess and check method of these two numbers need to multiply to our C value and they add to our B value. Multiply to C, add to B. So I could find factors of 32, 1 and 32. They don't add to 12. 2 and 16. They don't add to 12. 8 and 4. They do add to 12. Positive 8 and positive 4 multiply to positive 32, add to positive 12. So I have x plus 4 and x plus 8. And that would be my function in factored form. Okay, next one says, write an equation for the parabola in vertex form with the vertex 512 that passes through the point 720. Okay, well, vertex form, we've got, so I'm going to use y for the time being. Y equals a times x minus, there's the x value of our vertex squared, plus the y value, 12. Okay, now notice here, this a, we don't know. The x and the y, we can take straight from this point. So I can say 20 equals a times 7 minus 5 squared plus 12. Okay, that gives me 20 equal to a times 7 minus 5 is 2. So I have 2 squared plus 12. And that gives me 20 equals 4a plus 12. Subtract that 12, we get 8 equals 4a. Divide by 4, 2 equals a. So my vertex form would be y equals 2 times x minus 5 squared plus 12. Okay, so make sure once you figure out that a, you go back and plug it in to your original function that you were able to write out. Okay, last one that we're looking at, they give us the picture of a parabola, and we're trying to figure out what are three different equations that could represent this? An equation in vertex form, an equation in factored form, and an equation in standard form. And I think I will start with vertex form because I do know where my vertex is, and I am going to pick at least one other point so I can kind of follow the same method that I did on number 2. Okay, so I'll do some of my work over here. We've got y equals a. My vertex is at -2, 9. So that would be x plus 2. Remember, that's always minus whatever. So minus a negative becomes positive, plus 9. My other point that I chose is -1, 8. So I'm going to plug that in for my x and y. We get 8 equals a times -1 plus 2 squared plus 9. 8 equals a times 1 squared plus 9. 8 equals 1a plus 9. So a equals -1. And that makes sense because our parabola is upside down. Okay, so our vertex form then would be y equals -1 times x plus 2 squared plus 9. Okay, now I want standard form and factored form. And truly, it says factored then standard. I always go from vertex straight to standard because it simplifies down right to that. So if I have x plus 2 squared, same thing as we did above, we can just write that out twice. X plus 2 times x plus 2 plus 9. Do not ever distribute that square. Don't ever do it. Okay, just write it out twice. And then we FOIL. We get x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 4. And kind of running out of space here. Add that 9 at the end. So I'm going to simplify a little bit more. Let's see, we can combine these, and I'm going to move that negative to the inside. -x squared, 2x and 2x is positive 4x times a negative gives me -4x. -1 times 4 is -4 plus 9. That would give me -x squared minus 4x plus 5. Okay, now that I'm at the very end, I do think I will factor that negative back out. The reason I multiplied it in was because I wanted to make sure I was combining those like terms correctly, right? I want to make sure I have the correct sign with things inside the parentheses before I combine them with anything on the outside. So my standard form then would be y equals, or f of x equals, -1 times x squared plus 4x minus 5. Okay, and then our last one that we want is our factored form. So let's take this inside piece and factor it out. And if you are still struggling with factoring, come see me so we can work through that a little bit more. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to the c and add to the b. We want to multiply to -5, but add to +4. And do a +5 and a -1. X plus 5, x minus 1. And that's factored. So that gives us our factored form of y equals -1 times x plus 5 times x minus 1. And that is that. If you have questions over this, feel free to pull me over, ask a friend, whatever it is you need to do, and we'll get it figured out. Good job. Keep working.